Did you run this by the big chief?
I sure did not, Abe. I did not ask for permission, nor will I be asking for forgiveness. That is expected. Podcast that knows sometimes you just have a day where you wake up and you walk into the kitchen and you get the carton of egg whites out of the fridge there on the door, and you pour it into the milk frother, and then you froth up some egg whites in the milk frother, and you dump it right into your coffee. And that's how your day starts, and you just keep going. All you have to do is you just keep going. My name is Bob, sitting across the way from my good friend and co-host. That's Abe. How you doing tonight, Abe?
Doing well, Bob.
Yeah, here we are. Lori's here too. How you doing tonight, Lori?
Did we both do that today?
No, that was just you.
Okay.
Lori did that today. Today is Tuesday, March 18th, 2025. Already nearly 9:30 at night. So
good night.
I'm afraid, Abe, I'm going to have to put a bit of a short leash on you tonight. Not so much of your usual yappity yap. And we'll keep it nice, short, and sweet, as I always prefer to do. Because I'm in no mood to be up until fucking midnight. That's for goddamn sure.
What explains the mishap, Lori? What happened?
I don't do mornings very well.
But you've done other mornings. What changed?
Shh. I'm on autopilot. I'm just moving. I'm just doing. I'm relying on things being the same in order to move from one thing to the next thing. I have to do this because I'm awake before I want to be, and I have to prepare myself to go do a thing that I hate doing, that 3 people outside of myself rely on me to do very well. I have to be ready to do that. So I'm conserving.
Sounds like she's blaming the children for her dumping the egg whites into the milk frother.
The children's health insurance costs less than my husband's health insurance.
Also blaming her husband for her grabbing the egg cartons.
Okay. So
the egg carton and dumping egg whites into the milk frother.
So
and then my favorite part is that, because that's like you pour egg whites, it doesn't look anything like.
No, I'm not done. Shut up. So I wasn't paying attention because I have to pay attention all day to get paid. Yeah. So I conserve the paying attention for later.
Were you playing some bullshit matchy game on your phone while you're pouring egg whites into that milk
not at
frother?
all. I was just doing.
Were you doing the Wordle?
No, I wasn't doing. You don't understand how not okay I am in the morning.
To be fair to Lori, the carton of egg whites.
They were where the half and half goes.
Well, no, false. They are where the egg whites go, which happens to be in the same basic spot as where the half and half goes. It's just that for the last month or so,
there haven't been egg whites.
It's been hard to get egg whites because the eggs are hard to come by, and so everybody buys up all of the egg whites.
But do they not go behind? Do you keep them in front normally?
There's no normal. It's either front or back.
There's no normal except that Bob has coffee before I do. He makes his coffee first, which is good. So normally he pours the half and half, puts it back in front. It didn't get put back in front. It's fine. I'm not blaming anyone.
To be fair, again, it's a blue and white container of half and half.
They're the exact same size.
They're the same size. The egg whites carton is more purpley with more white thrown in than the other one. So if you're paying a small amount of attention, you'd be able to tell.
Yeah, they look different, but I wasn't looking.
Right.
I was trying not to kill myself all morning. So that's what I was doing instead of looking at what I was doing. And
I wonder, could you scramble eggs in the milk frother?
Yeah. So yes.
Or did they not become scrambled until you dumped them into the hotter coffee?
Yeah. So both. So I poured them in. So first I poured the almond milk in. And then I poured some of the egg whites.
Just add a little bit of egg whites.
So I poured in. And they looked weird, so I shook it because I thought, I don't know.
Is there something wrong with this half and
I
half?
don't know. And I didn't want to be a princess and complain. So I just poured it, and then I did it. And our milk frother is weird and doesn't always quite work right.
Bob, why does a half and half look like runny cum?
It did look like that. But Bob's weird, so I didn't want to judge either. So the milk frother, sometimes it froths a lot and sometimes none, and you just don't know.
You just don't know. Yeah, the milk frother is not, to be more fair to Lori, again, the milk frother is not the most reliable appliance that we have in the kitchen, because like sometimes for whatever reason, like maybe the hole gets covered up slightly wrong. I know.
You don't need to repeat what I said. I said it.
I'm getting to the, like, sometimes it froths all the way up to the top. Sometimes it froths only a third of the way up, and it's like you just don't always know what you're going to get.
Sometimes none. Sometimes so much. You don't know.
Sometimes it's none because Lori puts
forget.
milk and half. She correctly puts almond milk and half into the milk frother, but had not bothered to attach the paddle attachment to the milk frother so that it just sort of it's just sort of whirs in there.
It warms it.
And it warms up a little bit, but
I don't think
no frothing happens. She's like, Bob, there's something wrong with the milk frother again. And I pour the stuff out of it, and there's just no paddle there. It's like, I think I might have figured out.
Okay. I don't think that anyone understands how much dread I am experiencing every single morning that I have to go to work. Yeah. I don't think anyone gets it, including the person making fun of me for not doing everything right, who, last I checked, has not shit to do all day. House is a fucking mess.
How dare you?
Whatever.
Don't need to conserve any energy.
With the problem.
Yeah. So you're basically your mornings are the foundations are autopilot and muscle memory, and like
yes, 100%. Like it has to be that, and like enough that like if Bob wants to do a nice thing and make my breakfast,
she gets mad.
It's just like, oh no, I don't know what to do now. Like, what do I do? I don't know. And like I'll forget to do the Wordle. Like it's all very much autopilot and muscle memory. So anyway, the milk looked weird, but sometimes the milk looks weird. And it wasn't until I poured it in the coffee that I was like, I see what's happened. Okay. And I cried. And Bob made me another cup of coffee. And I drank it. But I had to drink it after I ate the toast.
Oh, it was all out of order.
A hero. Yep, that's him.
Anyway, how's your day, Abe? Good weekend?
Yeah. Pretty nice weekend. I watched a lot of college basketball, which I start to do around this time. So many SEC teams made it to the big dance.
That's right. Bulldogs are dancing against Gonzaga.
They literally let everyone in. I mean, I realize that the SEC has gotten better with all the money that's swirling about. But 14 out of the 16 teams making it, like breaking some record that I wasn't aware existed. Like only LSU and South Carolina did not make it. So even though like it's great that Georgia's
That's
in,
fucking nuts.
They literally let everybody in, and 14 teams is a lot.
The tournament starts Thursday in earnest. Do they have a play-in game tonight, or are they both tomorrow night?
I think there's a play-in. I think North Carolina is in one of the play-in games. But yeah, they have the like you losers fight it out.
The mighty have fallen. Yes. With North Carolina having them.
And apparently, I did not follow the regular season at all. Apparently, they weren't worthy if it weren't for some shenanigans by the chair of the selection committee, the UNC type, and he said that he had nothing to do with their entry.
Whether he's the chair or not, you want some numbers. You want to goose those numbers up,
especially for the playing game, right? Yeah, you want some eyeballs. Like you're not going to let some random school, some directional school, let UNC fight it out.
Yeah. Well, that's good. We weren't here last night because I had a tooth yanked out of my skull.
How did that go?
About like it sounds.
It's very normal. They just pull it.
Yeah, wisdom teeth. Probably should have had them out when I was a child, but here we go. Starting that process. That's fun. We don't have to talk about that. Baseball's happening. The reason we're also starting late here tonight is because baseball season is very much upon us.
Starting very late.
And yeah, my days and nights now are just utterly consumed. I went through and put the two schedules next to each other in the same spreadsheet because I've got the two teams going on. And we're going to be at the ball field 6 nights a week from about April 7th until about June 1st is how this is going to go.
Because we're so involved.
Yeah, it's just our lives now.
Is your time commitment different than in years past now that you have some
Yes.
administrative role?
Yes.
Bob has to be there all
I
the time.
basically have to be there all the time in addition.
Well, he doesn't have to, but should be.
Right.
And I don't trust anyone else to run the concession stand. Because
I put together a that Sign Up Genius. You ever have to go do something and somebody sends you a link to a Sign Up Genius?
Yes.
You click to fill a slot. I put together a Sign Up Genius for the concession stand, volunteers to run the concession stand. And I didn't send it out to the wider public because I wanted Lori to get first dibs as director of concessions.
No.
Yeah, her
No.
official title is director of
No, I
concessions.
don't have an official title.
For Monticello Little League. She needs to make herself available to do that lots of times. And then she took all but 3 of the slots out of the first 25 that I posted. So I'm not going to send out a Sign Up Genius that just says Lori from top to bottom, except for 3 slots.
You should just remove those and make a new one with the ones that we need.
Yeah, I think that's
So
what
I
I'll
don't
do.
look like such a weird try-hard.
All right, let's talk.
By the way,
Yeah.
quick, on the baseball front, did you corral enough people to be umpires or refs and whatnot?
Oh, no, I have no idea.
No, he hasn't
We're-
tried.
Well, it's not that I haven't tried. It's just that it's a difficult process, but we're going to make it work. We'll figure it out. I'm confident that I can be incredibly stressed for the next 3 months and yet still have enough umpires to make it work. All right, let's talk about briefly a couple of things in the news over the course of the last week. I don't know that I am terribly interested in getting on my big high horse about Mahmoud Khalil, who is the former Columbia graduate student, I believe he was, or maybe he was just a college student and his wife is currently still a graduate student at Columbia. I don't know. She still lives on campus in graduate student housing. He lives with her, or did until recently. He was arrested by the Department of Homeland Security and sent down to Louisiana in detention down there before getting sent back up to New York, I believe, to talk to his lawyers, essentially for having bad opinions. And the Trump administration has been insisting that they have every right to remove him from the country because of those bad opinions. Abe, what are your thoughts on the situation there?
So, to your point, it seems like there's enough of a wiggle room in the law. Like if you're a guest, like if you're here on a visa, like there are some conditions placed upon you.
A visa and a green card, for what it's worth.
Right. And so
and he's married to an American citizen on top of that.
Right. And I think he was like not just like just some guy in the crowd. Like he was one of the active participants during the protests at the university last year. Right. I don't know if he was in any of the buildings that were occupied. I don't know if he was one of them.
And Columbia was kind of the epicenter of a lot of that stuff, at least in New York. They were the main campus on which the anti-Israel, pro-Palestine protests were going on.
Right. So basically,
he was absolutely a leader of he's one of the spokespeople for that group, in fact. So like a point man on the anti-Israel stuff for the last couple of years.
Right. So basically, like he's like in a vulnerable position, and there's enough wiggle room in the law to do this. From what I'm not a lawyer, and so they're applying this pressure because they don't like the speech he exercised, and so like it's a shitty dick thing to do, but it seems to kind of fall within the wiggle room area where they can basically say you technically don't have certain protections, and we're going to exploit those lack of protections and do what we want. Because, I mean, this whole getting him and then sending him down to another state and then making a big show of it is to kind of like suppress speech, or at least to kind of have it to where like people are like, hey, if you're in any kind of precarious position, be on notice. If we can find a way to get you, we're going to get you. And so I don't know if that's a good thing that the federal government should be focused on, but what are you going to do? I mean, if it's within the law, there's not much you can do.
What bothers me about what the Trump administration has done here in particular is their sort of mealy-mouthed approach to the entire thing, where on the one hand they're insisting this guy has done crimes, and because he did these crimes, we are going to kick him out of the country. At the same time that they refuse to list what those crimes are, and when that stops working as a rhetorical point, they have Marco Rubio issue a statement that says, well, as Secretary of State, I've determined that it is in the national security interests of our country to get this guy out of here because of the things that he says, not necessarily because of his crimes, but because of what he has said, seems to be the point. And he went on the Sunday shows and talked about how we're going to continue to get rid of terrorists. I don't see what the big deal is here. Why is everyone so offended? And this was not just in relation to Mahmoud Khalil, but also I think in reference to like a plane full of Venezuelan criminals or alleged gang members who the Trump administration was trying to fly out of the country, and then apparently ignored a lawful court order that plane be stopped or turned around. And Marco is insisting, I don't see what the big deal is here. We're just trying to get rid of bad guys, and we're going to continue to get rid of bad guys, and we're not going to apologize for it. I am closer to the other side of this than I think you are in terms of, or just based on what you just said, although maybe you're just devil's advocating for the administration side there. I think it's bad and anti-American to say this green card holder who's married to an American citizen who's espoused noxious views, we're going to get rid of because he has espoused noxious views. And that's plainly what they're doing here. To kick out someone because they were freely expressing themselves in a way that you find noxious, I think is utterly unacceptable. I don't care about the technicality here. As I say, when it comes to the birthright citizenship conversation, I don't particularly care about the distinction between citizen and non-citizen when it comes to fundamental rights, especially those outlined by the Constitution, because the Constitution does not grant those rights. It recognizes them, right? And that if on the one hand we had a Constitution that granted us our rights, that would be a different question about how I thought that the individual and the state should relate to one another, whether in terms of the distinction between citizen and non-citizen. But because the Constitution explicitly recognizes those fundamental human rights, I've never understood this. There are some civil libertarians who say, not a citizen doesn't fucking count. We don't have to worry about it. And I've never understood that as a matter of principle. These are fundamental human rights that the Constitution recognizes. It shouldn't matter what your citizenship status is in terms of whether or not those protections still exist for you. Eli Lake, who's a conservative writer and a Jew, not that that matters necessarily, posted the following on Twitter, which I found myself agreeing with. He says, if Mahmoud Khalil is charged and convicted of an actual crime, he should be deported. If his quote-unquote crime is just the expression of support for a terrorist organization, then this pageant is grotesque. And yes, I realize that CUAD's harassment of Jews, this is the organization that Khalil was being a spokesperson for, destruction of property, etc., is not protected speech. But the legal argument thus far amounts to saying permanent legal residents can't say anything that the Secretary of State believes undermines U.S. foreign policy. That's a horrendous violation of free speech. And as much as I despise campus solidarity with baby stranglers, I love American values more. He's referring there to the fact that the people whose speech he's defending here are sympathetic towards Hamas, obviously. And I find myself agreeing with what Eli Lake had posted there.
Right, but I mean, all of that is true, but the fact remains, like, if there's any, like, leverage point that an administration can apply against you when they want to, like, that's what's going to happen, and it shouldn't happen, but, like, it's within their discretion. That's the problem. Like, there are other things that this administration has done that fall outside of that they don't have the authority to do, like dismantle certain agencies. But this one, if they can find that wiggle room, they'll kick him out of the country, and there's not much you can do about it then.
Right. Need I remind you that on day one, Donald Trump signed an executive order insisting that his administration was going to be the greatest free speech administration in the history of the planet. Again, not that matters. And as you're saying, this is simply the deployment of power for the sake of the deployment of power. And so they're going to do what they're going to do. I maintain that it is worth pointing out the ways in which this is violative of important fundamental rights. Something that I keep hearing a lot about is the fact that what Trump is doing and what Trump's positions are regarding immigration is incredibly popular, and that somehow gives Trump a mandate to violate both the law and good process, right, and due process when it comes to dealing with all of these things. That due process is permitted to fly out the window simply because, well, what he's doing is very popular, as though that's some sort of justification. And not to go back to the thing that I said on day one of the Trump 2.0 administration, all the time, but the lawlessness is kind of fucking terrifying to me, which is the process very much matters. And so when Libs of TikTok posts, an Obama-appointed judge just ordered deportation flights carrying Venezuelan gang members back to Venezuela to return to the U.S., which, by the way, I'm not sure it was Venezuela. I think they were going to, like, El Salvador, maybe? I don't know. Maybe that's wrong. An activist judge is siding with criminal alien gangs who take over apartment buildings, murder, rob, assault, and rape Americans. And then Scott Jennings, who's the token Republican and slightly MAGA type on CNN, then retweets it saying, "Prepare for the next 80-20 issue. Dems passionately arguing for the return of Venezuelan gang members to spite Trump." And the fact that it's an 80-20 issue is utterly beside the point. If what the judge has done is said, look, we got to at least look at the due process that's been violated here. We have to at least understand what's happening. And like, that shit fucking matters. And it should matter to anyone who actually cares about the enforcement of the immigration stuff that Trump is always complaining about, right? Because, yeah, it means that Obama-appointed judges and Dems are going to be flipping their shit about Venezuelan gang members. But, like, that's because there are people in this world who care about the underlying fundamentals here. They care about the process. They care about the constitutional order. And until fucking 5 minutes ago, you were those people, Republicans. So why something being an 80-20 issue when I hear, and like to some extent it's true with the social stuff, right? With the woke stuff. Like, why would you choose to be on the wrong side of an 80-20 issue when it's just social nonsense, when it's just the woke stuff? But when it's questions of constitutional order, when it's questions of fundamental constitutionally protected rights, you're the Republicans. You're supposed to be on the side of innocent until proven guilty, on the side of the constitutional order. But apparently not. Now suddenly you're just a bunch of fucking populists, and the only thing that matters is what's popular according to the American people.
Right. You know, I think you are right. Obviously, due process matters. I don't think everyone agrees. I sometimes get the impression that people consider due process as this like nicety that like bad actors exploit, you know, against us. You know, like, this is a decent country and these people are doing these illegal things and somebody's trying to uphold this due process to let them get away with it. Like, I think there is a cynical calculation that they're making to say that, because they're accepting as fact, you know, that Libs of TikTok framing is that the people, and there's like this very glossy like propaganda video that I just saw where they're like, all of the people, I think it was El Salvador, they're being kind of paraded around, and you're kind of accepting as fact that these people must be bad people, right? Like, normal people aren't treated like this, right? So, like, if you're, again, the shallow read of things, you see that video, you're thinking these people must be the worst of the worst. Look at all of this effort that has been undertaken to get them from our country to their country. right? So they must have done something. And some judge is kind of getting in the way with that, like frustrating the efforts of the Trump administration by trying to clean things up. I think that's the cynical calculation that they're making, that no one's going to look into like, well, they're invoking some aliens act that only was ever invoked during an act of war, and we're not in one. So like the law matters, and this doesn't apply. And I think there was the legal technicality that they're using is that you give a verbal order while the plane was in, halfway to the destination, and by the time you wrote it down, they were already there. I think that was like their legal out, the Trump administration, for not listening to the judge, is because they said, well, you just said it, even though I think that's supposed to carry the same weight as a written order. But that's beside the point. Politically, they're making the calculation that people are accepting as fact that these people are gang members, or this person is a terrorist, like the student, right? Instead of like being supportive of a group that's doing terrorist activities, like all of those distinctions are blurred. And I think, I don't know about 80-20, but I bet you a good chunk of the majority, like if they're just looking at it not beyond that surface level, they may reach that conclusion also.
What? As we've established on this show, or maybe the last show before, the majority also is fine with guilty until proven innocent, right?
Yes.
The majority is also fine with, if you have to kill a few innocents, as long as you're mostly killing bad guys, then you're going to be fine with that. Like, the point is not what the majority thinks. The point is that there are more important principles at play here, that just because you can get the rabble all excited about something doesn't mean that the rule of law goes out the window. And the one consistent thing with the Trump administration is that they're doing, yes, what might be seen as popular things, but they're doing them in lawless ways.
Right.
And that is what is bothersome to me.
And what's also bothersome is the attacks on the judges. Like online, it's, obviously a little bit of talk, they'll say whatever, but like the president, Elon Musk, others have applied pressure against some of these judges. I think there have been 3 different impeachment proceedings, or at least hints at impeachment proceedings towards those judges, to the point where the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court had to come out and like almost rebuke this effort with his written statement.
Right. New York Times, rebuking talk from Trump, Roberts calls impeaching judges over rulings improper. The Chief Justice rarely issues public statements. This one was reminiscent of another in 2018, defending judicial independence after the president criticized a different judge's ruling. Quote, for more than 2 centuries, the Chief Justice said, it has been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. The normal appellate review process exists for that purpose, end quote. This is, as the piece says, quite a rare thing for Roberts, or really any Chief Justice, to do. I didn't see if Trump responded yet directly to the Roberts statement.
I haven't either. I mean, the troubling thing, a lot of these cases are going to eventually come before the Supreme Court. I mean, there have been so many challenges, and so far, the Trump administration has lost a lot of them. Like a lot of the probationary employees that were fired, they're being ordered to reinstate. The USAID dismantling, they've told them to pare that back. Like a lot, I think the transgender ban in the military, there was an order that came out earlier today. So in court, where the law matters, not doing so great. And so maybe this is a new phase here, to where, for political reasons, they're kind of attacking the judicial branch to say that they are standing in the way of progress and that they're not legitimate for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a problem, because we're not there yet, but I mean, are we getting to a point where they're going to disobey an order? I mean, because it got pretty close there with this verbal versus written order, but it seems like they're kind of abiding by the judge's decision going forward. But at least with that flight that was midair, there was a little weird, like, we'll just let that flight land without turning it around. So, like, I don't know if they're kind of testing the waters there,
Yeah,
But
kicking the tires on a constitutional crisis.
yeah, but I mean, we're kind of heading there, and so like, what's going to be the? I mean, the Chief Justice makes this rebuke here, very tepid rebuke. But if a case comes before him,
I knew that you would be dismissive of this.
I mean, like,
Roberts.
what is that? Come on, because the problem that I anticipate is that the conservative court is going to side with the administration on some of these issues, right? To where they'll come up with some formulation to get to a 5-4, and maybe the Chief Justice will be in the minority, but they will win some of these cases that will come before them in the coming year or two, and so like it's going to be kind of awkward for the Chief Justice to be rebuking them, but they're kind of pressing all the buttons, trying to see what they can get away with, and this message that he's sending, who is that? Is that going to shame anybody? This is not going to do anything. It's a very weird thing to say.
At the end of the New York Times article, it says, later Tuesday, Laura Ingraham, the Fox News host, taped a segment with President Trump to air on her nightly show, which, of course, we have not yet seen. Ingraham asked the president about the Chief Justice's statement. Quote, well, he didn't mention my name in the statement, Trump said. I just saw it quickly. He didn't mention my name.
We're going to first hit the other big news of the day, which was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court issued what a rare statement about your suggestion on Truth that you posted earlier today that Judge James Boasberg should be impeached after he ordered those deportation flights to El Salvador halted, essentially turned around. The Chief Justice said it was more than two centuries. We understood that essentially impeachment was for very rare circumstances and not an appropriate response to rulings you disagree with. What's your reaction to the court's stepping in to make a statement here? They didn't make a statement when Joe Biden decided to forgive all those student loans.
Well, he didn't mention my name in the statement. I just saw it quickly. He didn't mention my name. Yeah. But many people have called for his impeachment, the impeachment of this judge. I don't know who the judge is, but he's radical left. He was Obama appointed.
That's how Trump reads things. He scans them for his name.
Right. And I mean, I guess it would be inappropriate for the Chief Justice to kind of call him out by name.
Can you imagine if he had rebuked Trump by name? All right. Speaking of pushing all the buttons and seeing what they can get away with, over the weekend, this was at 12:35 a.m. on, I guess this would have been Saturday night into Sunday morning, March 17th, 2025. So after midnight, the president was up.
March 17th was Monday.
Truthing. Okay, so this is Sunday night into Monday morning. President Trump is up and
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Truthing. This is from the president's social media website, truthsocial.com. The quote-unquote pardons that sleepy Joe Biden gave to the unselect committee of political thugs and many others are hereby declared void, vacant, and of no further force or effect because of the fact that they were done by auto pen. In other words, Joe Biden did not sign them, but more importantly, he did not know anything about them. The necessary pardoning documents were not explained to or approved by Biden. He knew nothing about them, and the people that did may have committed a crime. Therefore, those on the Unselect Committee, who destroyed and deleted all evidence obtained during their 2-year witch hunt of me and many other innocent people, should fully understand that they are subject to investigation at the highest level. The fact is, they were probably responsible. I love that. The fact is, they were probably responsible for the documents that were signed on their behalf without the knowledge or consent of the worst president in the history of our country, crooked Joe Biden. End of truth.
Wasn't there a period, maybe I'm misremembering, wasn't it Trump that came up with the idea that he can just like say somebody's pardon or think it, like, and that has like the same weight as actually pardoning somebody?
Yes,
maybe, yeah.
You are asking for consistency now, but not with that other stuff that I was complaining about earlier.
No, I'm just trying to get the history right. It's interesting that we've gone from there to this, and also, this auto pen thing, I assume the January 6th people, this wasn't Trump burning the midnight oil, right?
He was there with the Sharpie just over and over again, fucking 2,000 times or whatever it was.
So I do, like, sometimes, because I have no idea where, because this is not going anywhere. So, like, who is this for? Is this for him, or is it to stir the pot, or just for engagement? What is this for?
I don't know. I imagine it's to rile up the base and to make Democrats freak out about stuff. So, yeah, I guess just for engagement. And, yeah, it's not going anywhere. Although, like, would it surprise you if... Who's that fucking Kentucky guy who's always doing stuff on the House side, investigating people?
On the House side?
James Comer is who I'm thinking
Comer.
of. He was the one investigating the Bidens a great deal during the Biden administration. The James Comers and the Jim Jordans of the world, would it surprise you if they just decided to open up investigations into these people just to satisfy the Trump truth here? And, like, what would that look like? How does that get... Like, if they decide, we're going to investigate Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger and Adam Schiff for their involvement in the January 6th committee, like, who enforces that they're not allowed to do that? I don't even know how that fucking works, because it would be such a violation of norms that I wouldn't even know where to go.
Yeah, then that would be another avenue of where a constitutional crisis would come about.
Yeah, I guess so. Obviously, it's a fucking crazy thing to say or to tweet about or truth about or what have you. It did make me think of a little bit. This is a little bit sideways from where this conversation is. Last week, I think it was. When did we do? Maybe 2 weeks ago, when we did the Zelensky-Trump White House Oval Office meeting breakdown thing. And they kept insisting that Zelensky be thankful and to be more respectful and to be more grateful of everything that they're doing for him. And I don't know if this has been pointed out before, and I certainly forgot to point it out, but it was a thought that occurred to me, which is, why should Zelensky be thanking Trump for anything? Donald Trump has insisted over and over again that the $350 million that the United States gave to Ukraine, which is a false number and a fake thing that he's saying there. But Trump is saying it was extremely stupid of the United States to give Ukraine the $350 million that we gave them.
Billion, right?
$350 billion, forgive me. Sorry, we're dealing in made-up numbers here, so I screwed it up. But the many near $500 billion that apparently we have just given to Ukraine out of the good of our hearts, that Trump condemns Joe Biden and the Democrats for having done. What specifically are we supposed to be thanking? Is Zelensky supposed to be thanking Donald Trump and his Vice President J.D. Vance for? Like, it's sort of incoherent on its face, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I assume that he's probably thinking, like, you should you're not behaving like someone who needs my assistance, and you should be like very deferential to what I say, and you should be proactively thankful, right, for what I may do for you.
Right. It sort of gives the game away, where they're not asking him to be grateful for the help that has come, which they believe should not have come.
Right.
But that he should be obsequious and dick-sucking for what is to come in the future, right? Like,
right, yeah.
Like, if what you want is for me to do something nice for you, you should be really fucking nice. Right. Instead of whatever it is that you're doing now.
And also, basically, you're coming hat in hand to me, right? Asking for something. Like, the behavior should reflect that. And, you know, they got Ukraine to make all the concessions after that spat, and there was supposed to be a ceasefire on the Russian side, and apparently, like, the Russian president was just like, I'm going to come up with some unreasonable conditions for me to agree also, and nothing really came out of a phone call that the President Trump had with Putin. Like, I think what happened earlier today, where basically he was like, I will agree to a longer-term ceasefire if military and intelligence support stops altogether for Ukraine, which is not going to happen.
We can have a ceasefire as soon as I can willfully kill all of the Ukrainians. Right. As long as it is suddenly within my power to kill all of the Ukrainians that I need to kill to end this war, then we will have a ceasefire.
Right. And that's not something that Trump controls, right? Because other countries are providing support. So where does that leave that whole ceasefire talk? Now we're back to square one.
Yeah. Anything else in the Trump news of the week on any front that you want to talk about? I don't particularly.
No. Although I will say this country of El Salvador, they keep on taking in more and more prisoners. Like, aren't they worried of a tipping point? Like, because this is the same country where
capsized?
Not quite, but like, how many prisoners can a country absorb without it becoming like some issue?
Was it a 60 Minutes piece or some other news magazine piece where I saw that these people go into a prison down there and talk with the prisoners? It was a nightmare.
Yeah, it is.
Visual.
It is just nightmare fuel. I forget which show showed it, but I do recall that. But basically, it's just like they have so many people in there, and they're literally, it's like a dragnet operation. You look like you could be in a gang. Fuck you. Fuck your due process. You're coming with me. And apparently, the people there, it's kind of bizarre. Like I think there was a New York Times article where they interviewed parents of one of somebody who has been imprisoned by this rounding up down there, and despite the fact that their kid was rounded up, even though that their kid is innocent, they overall support the guy down there for doing this because, like, apparently the crime went down by this very broad approach. Like, it's weird how people can hold those two positions. Like, hey, my kid was rounded up unfairly, and the whole thing is fucked up. But I do support the president doing something about this.
Earlier, I was getting at the point that everybody wants guilty until proven innocent until they're the ones on the wrong side of it. And it's like, wait a second, where's my presumption of innocence? Apparently, with these parents, it's like they're also fine with guilty until proven innocent, even if it means their own son has to go to prison.
They can't shake the belief that, the president almost had it right. He's like 99% effective by getting, except for the one case that I know he got it wrong. Right. But somehow you believe all the other cases are correct.
Chuck Schumer helped avoid a government shutdown by essentially signing on to the Republicans' wet dream of a budget deal, right? And he has received a great deal of shit for that. So my prediction that there would be a government shutdown and nobody would fucking care, and that I think I said the Republicans would just like Musk and the Doge team would just take advantage of it, or alternatively that Mike Johnson would just quietly pass a continuing resolution to get us through to the end of the fiscal year. Neither of those things happen. Instead, we get a budget deal that sort of has a bunch of shit in there that you can't believe that any Democrats voted for. But Schumer went ahead and did so just to avoid the shutdown.
Well, it's because they listened to you.
Is there a politician less effective at a higher level than Chuck Schumer?
No.
He is the literal opposite of Mitch McConnell, right?
Yes.
Mitch McConnell is a fucking demon. He's a cowardly turtle. He's all sorts of bad words and bad thoughts that you might have about him. But he's also remarkably shrewd and an effective deployer of power. Nancy Pelosi in her day, remarkably shrewd and an incredible wielder of political power and influence, both within her party and without it. Chuck Schumer is the doormattiest of all doormats in terms of people with actual political power. I sent you a screenshot that includes, and I'm going to make sure that I make it the lead photo of this week's episode on the Substack anyway.
That awesome picture of him?
The picture of Chuck
so
Schumer, like sort of two camera,
such
super
a
old,
fantastic, awful picture.
I saw that in my Google News feed attached to no fewer than 3 different stories about this. This is the photo that everyone was using when they were
So
talking
fucking
about
good.
what Chuck Schumer has done here. Should the Democrats have resisted better or differently, Abe, or was this an inevitability that though it might perhaps hasten the end of Chuck Schumer's Senate career if it motivates, say, an AOC to bring a primary challenge against him, and she might conceivably win because of his display of sort of meager fecklessness as the leader of the Democrats in the Senate. Or is this somehow defensible? I don't know.
On the Schumer front first, it's remarkable how poorly he went about this, because last week in the run-up to the March 14th was the target date. After midnight on that date, the government would run out of money, and so the House smartfully basically just said,
Abe just said smartfully.
we're gonna pass it on our end, and then we're gonna fuck off, right? So basically, it's like hot potato. You're it, Senate. Basically, like there's no time for us. We're not gonna come back by the 14th. So either you pass what we want, or you own the shutdown. And Schumer, I mean, like in a shrewd sort of way, basically, like as far as you're gonna own it, basically, like we passed it. So like again, the shallow read by the public will be like, well, the Republicans control the House and they passed it, and the Senate, there's a filibuster you have to clear, so the Senate needs some Democratic votes to pass it, and so if something doesn't go through, it'll be because of them. So they lost the messaging at that point, and Schumer came out and he initially said that he was his side was going to vote no, and then like was it even 24 hours later or like a day or two later, he made an about face and said, no, it would be disastrous if we shut things down. I'm going to vote for it. Like, not really explaining his thought process. Like, you came up with one plan, and then you went with another.
Well, there's no thought process, but his rationalization was if we shut down, then that will open the floodgates for Elon Musk and Doge
like
to...
you said.
Right, but so the reason why I think that Schumer handled this so poorly is because not only did he fuck this up, he fucked up any future shutdown showdowns. And because my prediction was that it's too early in the term for there to be a shutdown. This is the honeymoon period of a new administration. I've never seen a shutdown this early, like 2 months in. So like I figured there's going to be a confrontation, but it's not going to happen now. It's going to happen at the end of this year or early next year in the lead up to the midterms. But what Schumer did was undermine his future leverage, because he said, and he was on CBS this morning, earlier today, he's been like, I guess he was trying to do a book tour on anti-Semitism, and this whole thing has derailed that. His fuck up of this shutdown debate fucked all that up. But he was on CBS.
That book he wrote. Okay.
He went on CBS this morning, and he was trying to defend his position, and he kept on making this argument. It would be disastrous. It'd be 10 times worse. I hate what's in the bill. And by the way, did not do a good job explaining what's in the bill, because it seemed like they just kind of changed the dollar amount here and there. And then there was some language that gave the president some discretion. But like,
well,
that
they also took away, this is the same thing that stripped Congress. Once again, they're just handing power to the executive on the tariffs question. Right. It's not like I saw this explained, like it's not like tariffs are the pardon power. There is no constitutional authority of the president to deal with tariffs. It's a legislative one. It's granted to him by the legislature and limited by the legislature. And something that they did with this continuing resolution includes the ability of the president to fucking do what he wants, and it's not going to include oversight by Congress in a way that was required before, which is frustrating.
Right. But be that as it may, that wasn't really, he did not do a good job of explaining that. But what he said was that it'd be 10 times worse if we shut it down. We cannot shut it down because you are ceding power to the Musks and the Trumps and them, right? So, like I said, at the end of this fiscal year, in September, end of September, or maybe they'll do another continuing resolution early next year, there's going to be another showdown. and a year will have passed, and you will need to confront this at some point. Maybe you'll have 6 months of this tariff stuff going sideways, and that's only good through September 30th, and then you can then enforce a shutdown situation then. But he made the argument against himself now by saying, under no condition should you do a shutdown because it would be disastrous. And so, like, now you have taken that off the table.
Do you imagine we're still in a world where it matters what a politician said 6 months ago?
Probably not, but it just seemed like he's so busy trying to put out this fire, he's not seeing down the road. And he was trying to make a point, like, unlike these other senators who are, bothering me, like, I could see around the bend because I've been doing this for so long. But he didn't see, like, 6 months down the road, you're undercutting yourself. And he doesn't seem to be that effective at messaging. Next time, you have to get ahead of the messaging. Like, because what was the message? It was basically like, they want to do something through September 30th, the Republicans, and you want to do something that's for another 30 days. So what, 30 days from now we do this again? Like, it wasn't a very compelling argument.
He's not good at any of it.
Right.
There's no part of it that he's actually good at. I don't know why he's the Senate leader for the Democrats.
I don't understand where his power source comes from because, like you made a point earlier, like Pelosi, at least there are some deliverables. What's McConnell deliverables? Like, I don't know what this guy has done really in his role as the leader in the Senate. Maybe no one else wants it. I don't know.
He's been around.
Right. He's been around and he's like the next man up or something. I don't know. But it seems like this is not the starting rotation you want to go into the midterms, right? You would want like some fresh blood going into next year, and he's not it.
Yeah. All right, we're going to do this cold. I have not yet watched this segment.
It's now time for America's favorite game show. Did Mark Strassmann, CBS News' senior national correspondent, get off a good one?
Dr. Luann Woodward. At the University of Mississippi Medical Center, she's the alpha leader fighting the Delta variant.
Strassmann gets off a good one.
A couple hours later, the mob trampled the Constitution. And Roseanne Boylan of Kennesaw, Georgia.
Ooh, sorry, Mark. Try again next time.
It is now time to play America's favorite game show, in which we ask the question, did CBS News' senior national news correspondent, Mark Strassmann, get off a good one?
I should be noted here that I did give Strassmann a notice last week. No bullshit at the tail end. You better be in the meat of the story, or else no credit.
Tonight's Eye on America will hit home for the estimated 53 million people in this country who are taking care of an aging family member. They're often forced to dip into their savings or adjust their work hours to make it all happen. Mark Strassmann looked into what's being done to care for the caregivers.
Ready? One, two, three.
We met Yanira Portondo working her second full-time job.
We're going to have to hear that again, Mark.
Yanira Portondo.
Put some fucking salsa on this one, he does.
Bob.
We met Yanira Portondo working her second full-time job. It's caring for her mother, Gladys Ortiz, in their Miami home.
Bella.
Since 2017, 3 generations of this family have looked after Mrs. Ortiz, now 83. Aging can be unkind. She struggles with Parkinson's and dementia, and the list of her challenges goes on.
She's having hallucinations. Sometimes she doesn't recognize me. There are days that going from the living room to the bathroom, she gets lost.
24/7, no matter what you're doing, you're making sure that somebody is here.
Yes.
Looking after her.
Yes.
Because without that help,
she's in danger. She wouldn't last a week by herself. Not caring for her will be criminal.
this family's luckier than some. Medicaid pays for a home care aide to pitch in 38 hours a week, but that still leaves 130 hours in a week, every week, where the family's spending time and money on her round-the-clock care. Everyone has a life of their own, of course, but the priority is making sure that she's okay.
We try to make sure that everybody's needs are
met.
Every day on average, another 10,000 Americans turn 65. And at some point, 70% of them will need long-term care.
I'm a physician by training. So
Dr. Maisha Minter-Jordan is the CEO of the AARP. She told us the cost and the workforce required for long-term family care is one of their priority issues.
If you're not a caregiver, you either need caregiving or you will become a caregiver.
Is it a crisis?
I definitely think it is a crisis. How do I make decisions about their care? How do I have the financial means to be able to do this?
In the U.S., family caregivers on average spend a quarter of their income taking care of loved ones. It can be emotionally and financially draining. Washington State added a payroll tax, money now used to fund long-term care insurance for its residents. A dozen other states are considering variations of long-term care taxes. The AARP is also advocating for a $5,000 federal tax credit to benefit caregiving families.
It's about recognizing the humanity in each other's.
Because it's not going away.
And it's not going away, and the problem is only going to continue to increase.
Yanira Portundo worries about something else. In 20 years, will her daughter have to care for her?
I could have never imagined I was going to be in this position. Ever.
You're exhausted.
Yes, I am. Most of the time I'm exhausted, yes. Mamacita. But every time she gives me one of those smiles, it gives me a little strength to keep going.
For millions of American families, caregiving is a labor of love that can demand every bit of both. For Eye on America, Mark Strassmann in Miami.
All right, Abe. Did Mark Strassmann, CBS News' senior national news correspondent, get off a good one?
Outrageous. No, he did not. He did it again.
Ooh, sorry, Mark. Try again next time.
I noticed this. He keeps doing the same thing. He just waits until the very end. I don't know if this
a
is
labor of love.
For millions of American families, caregiving is a labor of love that can demand every bit of both.
I was very clear. You cannot get credit for tagging something at the end of the story. It has to be in the meat of the story. I did not see anything in the story. No credit. I did like his Spanish at the beginning and end, but no credit.
Yanira Portundo.
Abe has spoken. No good one for Strassmann.
And I knew, I went above and beyond. I gave him advance notice a week ago, and he did not listen.
You did. He's
By the
clearly
way,
not listening.
Is that math correct? 70% of the population will soon be 65 and up?
Is that what they said?
That's what I saw.
I think you misheard.
Every day on average, another 10,000 Americans turn 65. And at some point, 70% of them will need long-term care.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, there's a graphic that pops up that says 70% of people 65 plus, which is very misleading.
That's source AARP.
Right. AARP is really raking in those dues, I would imagine, if 70% of Americans are over 65 years old.
So the new olds are getting they're hobbling into 65. They're gonna need some help, or is this like a product of them living longer?
I think it's a product of people living longer.
People living longer.
It's a real fucking problem, and I know. I have two living grandparents who have required extensive medical care the last few years. My grandmother with stage 4 ovarian cancer, surviving much longer than anyone would have dreamed over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, or however long that's been going on, and thriving, relatively speaking, for a woman as old as she is. And my grandfather, similarly, at this point, a great deal of medical care. But this woman, she's 83, I think. She's basically chair-ridden at this point with Parkinson's, doesn't recognize her own family.
It's the not recognizing people. Just what are we doing?
Medicare is paying for a full-time home health aide, 38 hours a week.
This family's luckier than some. Medicaid pays for a home care aide to pitch in 38 hours a week.
Somebody's earning their whole living, basically, taking care of this woman as taxpayer-funded. I'm not saying that it's a total misuse of taxpayer funds, but it is a completely unsustainable use of taxpayer funds, right? If 70% of people over the age of 65 are at some point going to need long-term care, and we are an aging population on top of that. Like, unless the robots are suddenly becoming far more proficient, we're going to have a problem here in terms of funding these sorts of liabilities. And I know it's gross to call them liabilities, but it's a real problem.
I mean, I don't know what the alternative would be, but you're right. I mean, if the what was it, the Medicare, Social Security, the defense, like gets to like 75, 80%, like if this becomes a bigger obligation with all these older people living longer, it's going to eat into. We'll be like that will account for like 85 to 90% of the budget at some point, right? Where just like 4 or 5 things will account for just about everything the federal government spends on.
Right. And there's no doubt that what the woman said is correct, that if she and her daughter weren't there to take care of this woman, she'd be dead in a week. Like, I don't doubt it for a second. Just look at what happened to poor old Gene Hackman, as it turns out.
Yeah.
Apparently his wife died of a weird respiratory disease in her bathroom, and Gene Hackman, completely out of his fucking mind at 95 with like advanced dementia of some kind or another, was it Parkinson's that he had?
Yeah, I think so.
Some sort of brain-eating disease that made him not realize
and also
what the
like
fuck
95.
was going on.
Yeah.
Sure, 95, but also with a brain-eating disease that makes him unaware of what's going on around him. The guy can't care for his
call
fucking...
911, my wife fell.
Right.
No, she's just dead in a fucking bathroom. He doesn't know what's fucking happening.
Yeah,
he can't feed himself
stupid.
or take care of himself, and can't take care of the dog. So like a dog starves. Like, this is a nightmare
It
thing
is
that
literally
happened.
the worst sequence of events, right? Because like initially that what is it? That carbon monoxide story sounded pretty good. Like that would have been a much easier,
much more pleasant way to go overall
Off-ramp,
if
right?
they all just died of carbon monoxide poisoning.
but
yeah.
for the
Okay, well, you were saying a couple weeks ago that that's not how we should handle things. No assisted suicide, says Bob. Oh, carbon monoxide would have been a much nicer way to go.
accidental carbon monoxide, Bob is for, just not intentional. But
yeah, I think that fucking matters, actually. That is not a distinction without a difference. That is actually a big difference.
But, I mean, that would have been much preferable than the caretaking spouse, 30 years the junior, dying first of some weird fucking virus I've never heard of. And then, like, the dog starving to death and the old man also dying because no one's there to take care of him. That's, like, the worst sequence of events for all of them to die.
It's just like, it's an unspeakably tragic way for a person to die, right? Is just unable to both mentally and physically care for himself, and then just fucking wasting away and dying on the fucking floor. Like, it's just awful.
Maybe in the future they'll have, like everybody wears these smart watches. Like, I don't detect a pulse in like 2 days. Like, and then call the authorities or something.
You have to lock it on them. They take off these things. They're toddlers again.
Yeah, that's true.
Very depressing, actually.
Yeah, what are we doing? Can we be done?
But I mean, this is going to be the future, right? Basically, this is going to be an area. There's going to, I mean, in the piece, they were talking about how one state over there in Washington, they have some sort of tax add-on that can help, and maybe some tax credit. But that's not going to be enough, I don't think, for the type of care that's going to be needed.
Didn't the Inuits, is this just apocryphal? Is this racist of me? Didn't they like put their old people on fucking ice floes and just send them out into the ocean or something?
I mean, I'm sure that can be looked into in terms of where that comes from. Like, there's probably some truth to that. Or like in Futurama, where the 88-year-olds go to the place.
I mean, yeah, what do we need? We need a suicide booth for everybody? Like,
no, the 88-year-olds just went to a place. They didn't have a suicide booth for the 88-year-olds.
They go to the farm upstate or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They went to the thing.
And some aging parents are probably thinking, like, man, I treated my kids too shoddily. Now I'm going to need their help. Need to make some amends in these last few years.
Do you dread I mean, obviously, you take care of your parents. You're the good son. You're not the best Muslim, but a good son.
For a top 5, both son and Muslim. By the way, it's Ramadan.
Top 5
another successful
of your family?
Ramadan.
Oh yeah, did you fast today?
Not quite. When I'm asleep. But the good thing,
Not how you're supposed to do it.
everybody, should have the ratio that we have. We got 8 children to 2 parents.
You know what you should do, Abe? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
You should say, I am fasting on Mecca time, right? It's just that happens to coincide with my sleep schedule in a very pleasant way, right? So I'm actually more Muslim-y than even you are because I'm fasting according to that time zone.
Not that it's a competition, but I'm better, yes.
Yeah.
That'll be my argument next year.
You said top 5.
Yes.
No follow-up questions, just top 5.
That's it.
Do you dread your parents' not so rapid decline in any way? Because as the good son, you're going to be almost certainly saddled once again with a disproportionate level of their care. Do you think about that at all?
No, I mean, I think the likely scenario will be one of the ones with a family because they already have the infrastructure, and I'll be providing a supportive role to the hospital and appointments and things like that. I've carved up I've come up with
This is why you still live in the city in a 1-bedroom apartment. You cannot possibly take anyone else on. Many, many times you could have bought like a nice 3-bedroom townhouse a little bit outside of town, but you knew what was going to happen. If
the
you
long
did that.
con, yes, and also my job is always on the chopping block. You never know what's happening in DC. I can't be helping.
All right. You've been listening to Cast Iron Brains, a podcast with Bob and Abe. Find the show on Substack, brainiron.substack.com, where you can actually find more from us, including the Billboard Hot 100 game, available exclusively at brainiron.substack.com. No longer posted to the regular podcast feeds. Check it out. It's a lot of fun. You can also check out more from Mark Gillig, who composed our opening and closing themes by going to tetramermusic.com, Tetramer music.com for more from Mark. Abe, did you make it to the movies this week?
I did. I went to go see Black Bag with Kate Blanchett.
That's what they call you.
Kate Blanchett and Michael Fassbender. They play this...
quite a cast.
Spy couple. They're both spies for, I guess, the British intelligence. And they are...
this is a Soderbergh film.
Yes.
Burying the lead here.
Very nice, 90-minute, spy thriller-ish. It's kind of like a spy thriller, Agatha Christie, whodunit kind of thing, where...
Well, that sounds fun.
They did a pretty good job with it for the most part. There are a couple of scenes that weren't so great, but... The concept is basically the couple, would they, if one of them turned out to be a traitor, would the other do the spouse in? Would they kill them for country? Do they love their country more than they love their spouse? But it turns out there was some underhanded activities, and the story goes into that. But
this was written by David. I don't know how to say his name. David Cope, who has written some of the best adventure and thriller movies of our lifetimes, including Jurassic Park and Mission Impossible and Snake Eyes and Panic Room.
Oh, look at that.
Spider-Man. This guy has written a bunch of really great stuff. How's the movie?
Good. I recommend it whenever it comes out on streaming, in a couple of weeks, because I don't think this was a wide release. I don't think this is a very bad month and also a very bad start to the movie year in the box office.
That works for us because we don't have any time to go to a movie.
Yeah. So I think the turnaround will be fast. By the end of the month, I wouldn't be surprised if they're hey, watch this.
Cool. Just the one?
Just the one.
What did you watch on TV besides the NCAA hoops? I
watched the White Lotus, the show that you poo-pooed on last week. I thought it was very enjoyable. I mean, it's a little weird with.
This was a relatively redemptive moment in what I found to be an otherwise not very good episode of The White Lotus, and I maintain my belief that this is a down year for this series.
We'll see. They may be able to stick to landing. I can't get past this guy talk. This fucking dope of a security person, the guy who's constantly like gawking at what's her face, Mook.
Mook, I think is her name. Yeah.
And yeah, she's pretty, but like, holy shit, my guy, like you're on the clock, like focus, like he lets a gun.
He takes the gun out to have a gander at it, and then she pops up again and is like, "Oh, nope, no brains. All my brains are gone because the lady's here, and I'm just gonna leave the gun on the desk."
And you know, this is not like America, right? They don't have like guns galore, right? So this is like a rare thing that there's a gun. You should kind of treat it with more respect than he did.
Although the American fucking sniffed it out right away, though, didn't he?
And he's got video evidence to show he should have came a lot stronger. Like, I know what, give me the shit, you know, or I'm going to call the police.
That's
but like,
not what that character does.
He's just so meek. Like, what is this? I mean, this is a fireable offense. I mean,
yes.
Yes.
Like, you just can't survive this. And he's lying to his supervisors. Like, is everything okay? Totally fine. How is he going to salvage this? This is a total disaster.
It's bad news for that guy, I think, in the long run, obviously. This is a bad episode of this show for the most part, including like extended intercuts between the three different storylines that are going on in like stupid music video fashion. And it's like, it's a bit much. The ladies out there making poor decisions with the Russians.
Kudos to the responsible friend. She sussed out that this is a bad vibe.
Do you know, I think the actress's name is Leslie Bibb there, who is the responsible friend.
Yeah.
You know how many times I have felt like Leslie Bibb? Like,
Did you know that she's married in real life to the other
Sam
guy?
Yeah,
Rockwell,
she's with
yeah.
Sam Rockwell, yeah.
He looks great.
Yeah.
Leslie Bibb just begging her friends to stop being drunk assholes about to make poor decisions. Feels like many nights of my own personal experience.
With who?
My brother and my best friend Abe.
They've never made bad decisions.
Not that awful in the way that Michelle Monaghan and the other blonde were trying to make.
But those two are on tilt, right? Like the one who's like, she's like deathly afraid of aging and she's trying to prove her youth, and the other one who's like divorced, and so they're kind of like rattled. Like she is like in a good place, like with her Trumpian husband or whatever in Texas, but like she's like good, and like her friends are just kind of like, I need to relive my 20s.
It was flashbacks to many, many nights of getting off work at fucking 1:30 in the morning and going and getting one drink and being around completely trashed assholes. Like it was very much that feeling, which was familiar to me and unpleasant.
I don't want to be like a dismissive of the Russian sort, but that one guy was very
Nope.
a very big buzzkill. The guy, the tall blonde guy, the bald guy. He's like, my aunt accuses me of killing her kid. Like just the whole time, just bad vibes. And
he
like,
definitely killed her kid, right? Also, the fucking brothers making out because they got drunk. Like that was a bit much.
I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't get that. I mean, I guess it's the drugs. I don't know what's going on.
They were
there.
just drunk. They didn't even have the happy drugs in them yet.
Did.
I don't think.
No, they did. They took the drugs.
They took the drugs. They were still on the boat when they were playing like spin the bottle.
That was after.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
So
whatever.
basically, they were like, the lady was like, hey, let's do the drugs. And the guy's like, Arnold's kid was like, no, I don't do drugs. And then they pressured him into it.
All right, I will.
Yeah. If you
I
ask
was
3
so
times.
sure that he was going to spit that pill
I
out rather
honestly
than
thought
take
he
the
did.
drugs.
Because he put it in his mouth and he like moved away, thinking
Right.
like he would just spit it out. But nope, he took it.
He took it and then he made out with his brother.
Although the brother, I mean, there was like a gentle kiss at first, just like,
It was
you know.
very weird.
But the second at bat was all the younger brother's fault.
Anyway, to the part of the episode that I actually did like, which was Sam Rockwell's monologue about first being a sex-crazed maniac banging every Thai woman in the neighborhood or the country, and then realizing that what he wanted was to be the Thai woman, watching himself get railed by himself. Lots of weird Buddhist stuff going on there in Mike White's head. I thought it was a spectacularly well-delivered monologue by Rockwell, and oddly, in his reaction to it, I found Goggins to be good for basically the first time. Like up until now, I've found him to be just like this fucking mope who sucks.
Right. Yeah.
And like, that's fine, but it's not an interesting character. It's not a particularly interesting performance. But this, I thought he pulled off very well. And it's funny because it's like his character came to life for the first time around this old friend of his. And it says a lot about how little regard he has for the girlfriend character, Amy, whatever her name is.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's what they're going for. But it was a very good 5 or 10 minutes there with Goggins and Sam Rockwell.
That face he was making throughout was very appropriate because I was like, what the fuck? So from what I gather, the point is like you can't possibly indulge an insatiable appetite. Like, and this guy has it for like getting vengeance on this hotel person who killed his old man, who likely is his old man, probably.
Oh, man, that's exactly what I said to Lori the other night. I was like, so we're going to find out that this is either actually his father or his father simply worked in his employ and he was like a good bad guy for his father. Like, one of those two things is going to be the reveal here is my guess. But maybe that's too obvious and there will be a swerve.
It seems like it's heading in that way, but like it's like I thought I could find something through like fucking my way through it and drugging myself through it, and I couldn't. And like maybe he was like, well, maybe I'm not gonna get what I'm seeking by killing this person, and he called his girl and she wasn't available because she was doing drugs. So I don't know if he was having second thoughts or if he's gonna go through with his little scheme. Sounds like he is because he's asking for his buddy to pretend to be like a director or something. Yeah. In the next episode.
Well, what he asks his buddy after hearing the story of how he dressed up as a pretty Thai girl and got railed by middle-aged white men while imagining that he was the Thai girl watching himself get railed by himself or whatever. He then says, yo, I'm going to need you for a little role play tomorrow night. and he says it with a straight face, and Sam Rockwell's like, yeah, okay, I guess we're going to bang heads together or something, like the good old days. That was a bit on the nose, I thought, there, Mike, with the writing. The Southern family of where dad's a financial dirtbag or did one bad deal, and now it's going to bite him in the ass. I thought that was nearly unforgivable. That he is on the verge of pulling the trigger.
Holy fucking shit. Like, right next to his, like, sleeping wife. I mean, she's, like, one room over, but, like, what was the plan? Like, first of all, not a lot of details. I'm sorry, I love y'all, or whatever. Like, why even write anything? That's nothing.
Right. I'm very sorry, I love you, and then he was going to shoot himself. What I thought for certain was going to happen was that it was going to be a hysterically small caliber bullet that he had that the
like
supervisor
that
the supervisor had given to our dopey idiotic security guard because he doesn't fucking trust him, right? And so it was just going to be like a BB that came out and he was going to shoot himself in the head with this little BB that barely left a dent.
That would be good.
But instead, Parker Posey interrupts him before he can, like in the moment that he's about to pull the trigger, and he doesn't fucking do it. And so he lives. Is his fate that he's going to try to convince his family to abscond permanently to Thailand on the lam from justice in the way that so many of these other dirtbags that we've seen throughout the series have hoped to do?
I mean, his daughter wants to stay put for another year, but I mean, I don't know how he can convince his oldest son not to turn on his phone because this information will get out.
He'll have to come clean if this will be the plan. He will say, look, I did a bad deal, and now I'm going to go to prison if we go home. So we got to figure out a way to overstay the fucking travel visa.
Right, but it seems like it's not likely that any of them are going to be in this shootout. Like it's kind of like almost like a red herring at this point. I did somebody online pointed this out, but like Duke, the basketball team, is entering the March Madness tournament. That still image of him about to shoot himself is likely going to be repurposed.
In the Duke sweatshirt?
Yeah, it's likely going to be repurposed if something goes sideways with them this tournament. But just a terrible plan to kill yourself. At least go somewhere out there, like, or just drown.
There's a whole fucking ocean.
Yeah.
And plenty of pools around the facility there. Have some self-respect and like accidentally break your neck in the shallow end or something, and you just be floating there in the morning. It looked like an accident, and your family has plausible deniability there.
On the three best friends front, Why not just bed the guy? Why throw her friend into the mix? Like, hey, he's into you, just so she can then undermine that.
This is normal.
That's a normal thing. Like, hey, you should give it a go, and then
100%.
Psych.
This is a normal yes.
This is it's bad behavior by Michelle Monaghan, and I'm ashamed of her.
It is so normal. Hey, you should hook up with my friend. 100%.
Do you think that's what the whispered word to the Russian was? Because the chick who goes skinny dipping, I forget, the lawyer friend,
Carrie Coon,
who's the one who's free to hook up as she sees fit because she's single, has whispered words with Valentin at the very end, where my thought was, hey, I'm going to go to bed and pretend like I'm going to bed, but I'm fucking wasted. So why don't you come see me and we'll do the thing in 5 minutes, right? Like 2 knocks and I'll let you in. I assumed that was what was being communicated there. Instead,
that's what it read. It seemed like that was where they were going, but maybe like in retrospect, because like there was that moment earlier when he gave the shots to everybody and the responsible one said no and was firm on the no. And the Carrie Coon character was like, fuck it, I'm going to take it. The guy gave this weird look. I was like, is he like drugging these people? And this is like too many.
They misdirected you. It sure seemed like he was trying to drug him.
But maybe when she was like, hey, I'm still available after all the festivities are done, maybe she said it in such a sloppily drunk way. He was like, no thanks.
Oh, he's an upstanding criminal?
I mean, there's like a point. Like she's like too drunk. And I'm, And then the other girl called and was like, okay, back open for business.
Yeah.
And she's like a celebrity in the show, right? So he's
I don't know what the fuck she's thinking going around. Everybody's got their fucking phones. She's going to get Instagrammed at some point.
Definitely, yes.
Anyway, what else did we watch besides
We finished Shoresy.
We finished Shoresy. Shoresy was delightful, and season 4 is apparently coming at some point.
No, it's out now.
Oh, it's out already?
Yes.
Right. Well, we can watch it together then. How exciting.
Yeah, someday.
Shoresy's great. Season 3 was very good.
So good.
Again, not for everybody. But if you watch...
It's not for everybody because everybody sucks.
It's true. It is right up our alley.
It should be for everybody, but everybody sucks.
If you watch the first... And again, these are like fucking... Some of them are like 18-minute long episodes. Like, they're very short. It's very fast. We watched 3 seasons in no time at all.
Well, we watched the whole 3rd season on Saturday night.
Yeah, and the whole 3rd season took us like 2 hours or 2.5 hours or something. Great show.
So good.
What else besides Shoresy? Anything?
Inception or whatever it is.
That doesn't sound right.
Succession?
Severance?
Severance, that's right. We watched episode 9, I think. Was it episode 9?
Yeah, probably.
Of season 2 of Severance. What the fuck happens? A lot happens, right?
I don't know. I don't really remember.
Doesn't it end with Big Daddy Keir coming down into the floor and saying something to Helena or Helly E or whatever she is? Helly R. I don't know. We'll see. The show seems dumb. It rather suddenly seems very dumb.
Yeah, because they go meet in the woods.
Yeah, the most unforgivable scene, I think, of the series so far is Mark, his Audi Mark, meeting in the woods with the Patricia Arquette character, and they just hang out in the woods for like 8 hours until it gets dark and they can go do this other thing. And the thing that, Abe, you're not caught up, right? You're not watching.
I just finished the 4th episode where like what's his face drowns the person to like make sure that they like there was a scene where they were like in the mountains or whatever in the cold.
Right.
I got that far, but I haven't seen anything else besides that.
That was the high point of the season to this point, actually. So.
Okay. So I was like, oh boy, I don't know about this.
The thing that's unforgivable that happens in this season so far is that Mark's sister, and this is, you have to be, sorry, my apologies if you're not watching the show. This is completely inside baseball. It doesn't fucking mean anything to you. But I'm disappointed in this show, so I'm going to complain about it. Mark's sister, who basically functions as the protector of Mark. Like, her whole reason for being is, I'm here to protect Mark.
Right.
And Mark's sister insists on calling the Patricia Arquette character for help against the wishes of the person who's trying to reintegrate Mark, which is to say, trying to de-sever him from himself so that he can join the two halves of his consciousness back together and know what's happening inside Lumen at the same time that his outie knows about the outside world, right? So they want to marry those two consciousnesses back together in order to help solve the various mysteries. And he has a negative physical reaction to that, which we can expect based on what we saw in season 1, where his best buddy inside Lumen does the de-severing procedure and fucking goes insane and dies. So it's a bad time, but the scientist lady thinks that she can do it in a way that's better this time. Mark has a negative reaction to the procedure, and the sister's reaction is to call the least trustworthy individual that she can possibly imagine, right? Which is a woman who pretended to be a breastfeeding expert so that she could worm her way deeper into the lives of this family, one of whom is an innie and goes to Lumen every day, and the other of whom is a newborn's mother, and she pretends to be this witchy woman who knows how to help people breastfeed. Like a person who's given you zero indication that they can be trusted in any plausible scenario, and you're going to turn over your entire life to this woman's care for no reason. There's nothing in the script or in the screenplay or in the show that to this point suggests that the sister character should trust the Patricia Arquette character, and it's purely done for plot expediency reasons, and it's completely not okay.
I got that look to forward to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We gotta.
But anyway, yeah, this episode ends with Mark coming back into contact with the Patricia Arquette character as his innie self, and it's supposed to be this big dramatic moment.
Okay.
But I guess we'll see what happens.
This is one more episode?
Yeah, but it's gonna be long.
It's going to be like fucking 75 minutes long.
Oh, wow. Another bullshit cliffhanger, you think?
Nearly a two-parter, if you count the 37-minute episode that we got earlier in the season. This 75 minutes is nearly 2 whole episodes.
Oh.
But yeah, I don't know. I imagine we'll get some sort of answers. They weren't shy about giving us like a big dramatic end to the season that answered things, but also was a cliffhanger. Yeah. So I imagine it'll be a similar thing where we get big reveals, but also some sort of a cliffhanger. But yeah, I also apologies to Jerry because I said when I was complaining about the show most recently, I said, I know you love the show, Jerry, but I'm going to fucking bitch about it anyway. He has also found himself quite frustrated with the show these last couple of weeks. Yeah. Sorry, Jerry, that the show is bumming you out.
Hard to get the second season right.
I guess so.
Wasn't for Buffy.
You got to go back 30 years, though.
Buffy's first season was not good, though, is the thing.
No, but the second one was.
No, I know, but I'm saying if you have a good first season.
Mad Men had a good second season. Breaking Bad had a good second season.
The greatest. This is what I've been saying about peak television, is that there were actually only like 3 peak TVs. There were only 3 good TV shows ever, as it turns out.
Mad Men,
the rest
Breaking
are bad.
Bad, and Buffy.
It's not Buffy. Buffy is not number 3.
Fine. Say goodnight.
Abe, have you got anything else for us tonight?
Nope.
Well, I guess that's all we've got for you tonight then, and we will talk to you next time.
Later.
It's such a good fucking email, Abe. It is the best possible version of an email to a Little League that is imaginable.
Well, that's good. Overwhelming force. She can't say anything. Like, this is too good for me to say.
This is such a classic me formulation too. I did the same thing when an apology was warranted but not really warranted.
Early on.
A few weeks ago.
Oh wait, then okay.
This guy was all butthurt about something that he had no standing to be butthurt about, and really wasn't that big of a deal either way. But my response was to send an over-the-top, fucking self-flagellating, oh man, I made a big mistake and I'm going to learn from this mistake and it's never going to happen again kind of response.
Yeah.
radio silence in return, which is just fucking, it's exactly what I was aiming for. And it's such a shitty, it's kind of a shitty way of dealing with things, I think. But also, like, yeah, go ahead. Come at me after I make that sort of an apology. I dare you. I dare you to still be mad after that.
If it works, why not keep doing it?
Yeah.
And now Bree wants me to choose if we want to get the Pepsi delivered or if we buy the Pepsi.
Well,
at
Lori,
the
you
store.
are director of concessions, so that's
no, I'm not.
That's a call for you to make.
I'm not. No, it is not. I refuse.
Should I get Lori a hat that says director of concessions or a T-shirt that says
I won't wear either of those things.
Director of concessions.
Whichever you would like to throw away.
Director of game day experience.
I will do all of the work. I want to make none of the decisions. I will do all the work. You fucking tell me what you want, and I will do it. And it will be done well.
I don't know about anybody else, but I am very aroused.
Okay, well, let's go to bed.
I'm going to... oh, it's too late for all of that, Lori. Relax.
Not too late to go to bed.
I'm going to share this email with you, Abe, just because I'm so fucking proud of this goofy email that I sent. So, there you go. Now you have to read my 1,000-word email to the Little
You have the
League.
Ace of Base article to read.
Yes.
And then the longer than that email to read.
I wonder which one has the most words.
I mean, I'm sure that the Ace of Base
Cracked,
article does.
Cracked was never shy about
Yeah.
word count. So I think that will be longer. Anyway, all right.
All right.
Good night.
Good night.
The proceeding was created with 100% human content.